what your favorite World of Warcraft expansion says about you. Now, a lot of you guys know my favorite is Wrath of the Lich King, of course, and it's not just about, the game, how it was at the time. That was fun, obviously, a lot of people playing, but for me, the lore, obviously, Wrath of the Lich King lore cannot be topped. It's the best lore there was. Probably after Wrath, honestly, Legion and maybe Mists of Pandaria mix in there at in second place. Honestly, Mists, I think, is a highly underrated. The thing that hurts Mists is the thing that makes Wrath of the Lich King really good, and that's really the lore. Obviously, we had some good lore stories with the Thunder King and stuff, but beyond that, I think lore-wise, Mists was a bit weak. But gameplay-wise, I thought Mists was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Let's see what my favorite expansions, and maybe yours, say about you.
What your favorite World of Warcraft expansion says about you. Vanilla WoW, the original World of Warcraft experience. If you are a fan of this more grindy, slow-paced, but more adventurous style of WoW, you're probably someone who's a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, who just wanted to translate that tabletop experience onto the PC.
I like Classic.
After all,
Classic's
in many
good.
ways, that's what
I don't
original
play it,
World of
but
Warcraft
I
was
played
meant
it back
to
when it
be.
was vanilla.
You're also probably more of a role player at heart, most likely loving to fall into the video game worlds that you delight in. So that slower pace, it might turn
the immersion of Classic has yet to be topped, honestly. And when I say Classic, I mean vanilla. That's what I played. I started playing back in 2005, and playing vanilla WoW, it was the immersion, the size of the world, the exploration. I remember still going to Westfall for the first time, obviously seeing Stormwind for the first time. I played a human back then, and it was amazing. I loved it. The size of the world, the scope of it all was so massive to me. It was so immersive. It was the first time I ever played an MMO, and it just sucked me in, man. Obviously, I'm still playing now. So I definitely have fond memories of vanilla.
Way some people, but it actually becomes a delight for you. It's an opportunity to read quests, talk to other people in the open world, and form a semi-backstory for that paladin that you've been leveling up. However, even though Classic might be your favorite time in Warcraft, you do admit that it is lacking in some things. Balance, endgame mechanics, the need for more quests in certain zones and so forth, but in a curious way, you think that what's lacking in Classic is actually what makes the game so special and so good in your heart and in the hearts of others. The Burning Crusade. All right, when you were younger, you probably missed the original World of Warcraft vanilla hype. You heard about the game, perhaps, thought it looked interesting, but convincing your parents to pay $15 a month for a video game,
that was a tough one.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I'm not gonna lie, that was a barrier to entry for me for a long time. So when my brother and I found out about World of Warcraft, we were actually visiting my mom's friend, right? And her husband introduced us to World of Warcraft. This was in 2004. I mean, this guy was on it. I still remember. He was a big-time nerd. He used to work at Circuit City. I mean, if you remember what those stores were. And he showed us WoW, right? So that was the first time I ever remember seeing it. I remember seeing him on his Night Saber. He was playing a Night Elf Hunter, and he was riding around on it. And right away, I was like, dude, we got to play this game. Both my brother and I were like, we got to play this game. So we tried to convince my dad, hey, we got to pay $15 a month to play this game. And he was like, $15 a month? Get that shit out of here. Took convincing, had to put together a PowerPoint presentation, and eventually he was convinced, but he said we could only have one account. So my brother and I, what we would do is we would sit in the family. We had a little office in our house, and I would sit and play. My brother would sit in the chair behind me, and he would watch me play as I played my human mage or night elf hunter back then. And then we would switch, and I would sit behind him, and he was playing his Tauren warrior, and I'd watch him play. And that was how we played for a long time, I think up until BC, and then during BC, I was actually able to sneak my mom's credit card out and get a separate account, so we were finally able to play at the same time. But leading into BC, in vanilla, I got up to level 58 just before BC came out, so I never hit cap level. I was, shitty. It took me a long time. I was 58, and I remember going to Hellfire Peninsula for the first time. Holy shit. What an experience that was. That was amazing. I'll never forget it.
Regardless, somehow you mustered up the courage one day to ask. Then somehow the
on that
gaming
AOL,
gods
yeah.
favored you, and
it was
a
a
few
gateway
hours later,
PC too.
you were in
remember.
Azeroth for the first time, playing as a sexually provocative blue alien goat woman. Those were the days.
Those were the days.
If TBC is your favorite time in WoW history, you're probably not necessarily a traditional fantasy fan. Seeing as Outland takes place mostly in space with aliens and demon technology, no, you're more of a fan of creativity and expression. Perhaps somebody who doesn't necessarily believe that video games need to stick to genres and stereotypes, but should be free to explore new and even bizarre ideas for the sake of fun. A wizard in outer space fighting demons? Like, it's weird, but it's
Yeah,
cool. If you
it
started
was
in
cool.
TBC2, you entered into World of Warcraft during its golden age, and the game, even if you no longer play it, holds one of the most special places in your gaming heart.
Ad time.
Ad time. Okay. Well, what does that
Zygor.
play?
It's World of
Zygor,
Warcraft's
okay.
ultimate
Very
add-on,
nice.
everybody. Linked down below in the description. Use it to help you level faster, get more gold, get achievements, mounts, pets, you name it. Zygor is the ultimate guide add-on for everything World
Get
of
it.
Warcraft. Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay, hold on. Before he gets into the best expansion of all, I do remember TBC. My one goal is to hit cap level because I never did it in vanilla, and I grinded the shit out of it. I remember I was in Netherstorm freaking grinding out, killing mobs at the end just to get that final level, and my mom didn't see me for a couple days. I did nothing but eat applesauce in my parents' office, right? At the end, I was stacking them up. I was too lazy to even get up from the PC. I was just grinding it out, and the applesauce cups were stacking up all around me. And I finally hit cap level, and I remember running down to the basement. My mom was down there, and my sisters were chilling with her watching TV, and I ran down. I was like, I finally did it. I hit cap level, Mom. And she was like, great, now you can get off that stupid game and finally sit with us for a little bit. We haven't seen you in days. And my reply to her was exactly the same thing that they said in South Park. I was like, what do you mean? Now I can finally start playing the game. And I ran back upstairs and disappeared for another couple hours, started running dungeons and shit. It was great. BC was a grind, man. That was some tough leveling in WoW. I mean, people talk about classic WoW leveling. Yeah, that was hard, obviously, because it was 60 levels. But that 60 to 70 grind in BC, holy crap, that was intense, and it took time and commitment. But damn it, I was committed back then, that's for sure.
While walking in Walmart, you saw a
Applesauce
game
level
on
7,
a shelf
that's right.
called Warcraft 3. You thought the graphics
I wasn't
looked
even using a spoon. I was just drinking that shit.
kind of neat. So you bought the game, you took it home, and you were immediately blown away by how frickin' good it was.
Yeah.
The mechanics, the story, the characters, especially Arthas. Almost overnight, Arthas became your favorite video game character.
Hell yeah.
And you craved deeply a conclusion to his story.
Yes.
Enter Wrath of the Lich King. Set in the frozen heart of Northrend, this is
So
World
good.
of Warcraft's most iconic
good.
expansion, and for good
The
reason
music,
too.
the music, the landscape, the story, going to the boring tundra for the first time on that ship, man, it was so good. And the overall story of the Lich King just hanging over you, waiting to be finally killed at the end of the expansion. Oh my god, it was so good, man. It was peak WoW. It really was, not just in terms of population, but just overall that storyline, the first in-game cutscene of the Wrathgate. God, I don't know if they'll ever get back there, but man, those were some good times. My first time raiding ever. If you don't count really Gruul's Lair, which was like not really a raid, it was a single boss back in BC. I did do that in BC. Karazhan was my first ever raiding experience in WoW. That was the first time I was actually good enough to get geared, and I was in a guild and I raided. Man, that was a good experience.
The Lich King.
Good memories.
Most people who are fans of this expansion are either Warcraft 3 Arthas fanboys or cringe
I mean, that's
Viking
me.
pagan LARPers in real life like me. But
Yeah, I
on
don't know
another
about
note, one characteristic that all Wrath of the Lich King fans have in common is that they're the coziest gamers in Azeroth. The Tuskarr, the warm hearths of Northrend, and the inns. This expansion, it might have a theme of darkness, necromancy, and undeath, but it also is one of warm fires and hot chocolate. Seriously, how many of you guys made yourselves a cup of hot chocolate or coffee and just delighted in looking at the fjords of Howling Fjord or
Yeah.
the glaciers of Borean Tundra?
What about Grizzly Hills? I mean, man, these zones were top tier. I love this shit. And obviously, they introduced Death Knights, which are still the best class in the game, and it's still the only thing I play. And man, the glory days of Death Knights back then, being able to run a dungeon with just 5 Death Knights, all self-healing and doing damage and tanking at the same time. Yeah, those were good times.
Be the only one. Right, guys? Cataclysm. Many who started their World of Warcraft adventure in Cataclysm were the reluctant WoW players.
Yeah.
Like the TBC nerd, the Cata lover, they heard of WoW, during its golden days of vanilla to Wrath of the Lich King, but they avoided the game for one reason or another, most likely that $15 a month price tag. But one day, after much consideration, this gamer finally installed World of Warcraft and was met with a world torn asunder by Deathwing. The quests were more linear, the class combos were a little bit more silly. Holy cow. And the lore was a little lacking, but who cares? This was a new Azeroth, and everybody was delighting in exploring it, including you. The people who love Cataclysm the most, yes, they are people that most likely started playing World of Warcraft in Cataclysm, but they are also the type of player that represent
I
a
think
sort
so.
of change in the WoW gamer,
I
especially.
do think the people who prefer Kata or their favorite is Kata are probably only the people who started playing in Kata. They have found memories of that. But for me, I actually remember Kata. I started undergrad at the time, and it was like the first time that I took a tiny break from WoW. Kata was the first time that I took a little step back. I was studying and all that shit, and whatever college has to do with how it affects your life. But at the time, I do remember kind of falling off the game a little bit. Never really unsubbed, I don't think, but I did take some time off. The grindiness of the Sam days kind of came to a slight end during Cataclysm.
Especially if they started before Cataclysm. These gamers, they're not so much the type that
It did,
enjoys
yeah.
the long
Highest
traveling,
concurrent player
confusing
base,
quests,
yeah.
the tabletop RPG-ness of the original expansions.
But Kata was also, I believe Kata was also the first expansion where the player base started to drop at the same time. They had the highest peak coming out of Wrath, but then it was the first time I think that we saw a drop where the expansion finished with less players than it started with. I started late vanilla and honestly think Kata is A tier. It's not only my favorite, but it's honestly a good expansion. People only sadly remember the content drought. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, honestly, maybe controversial, but I feel like WoD gets that same rap because WoD actually had good raids, had really good story content early on with the opening quest line. But unfortunately, because of garrisons and the drought of content at the end of the expansion, WoD is just remembered in a bad way. But yeah, I mean, Kata was all right. I did do the rating in Kata. I rated every raid that came out in Kata except whatever that last one was, a Twilight, whatever, the Emerald Dream one. But otherwise, I did do Kata rating. I did play it, just not as much. That's it. I think that was more because my life was changing at the time.
They're rather laid-back gamers. They prefer fun over immersion. They prefer gameplay over storytelling, and there's nothing wrong with that. Who didn't enjoy Cataclysm PvP in the raids, after all? They were great. And you know what else would be
The raids
great,
were
everybody?
good.
If you just took a second to tear
Firelands,
asunder
good time.
that like and subscribe button.
I
Thanks,
already
guys.
did.
Mists of Pandaria. Well, chances are, like everybody else, you
Underrated.
probably left.
Underrated. I swear to God, man, underrated. I feel like Mists followed up Wrath, it would have been higher in terms of population, and the panda theme and all that really got to people. I feel like they just never really gave it a chance. But Mists of Pandaria was the last expansion that me and my friends went out in the middle of the night. I remember we went to Best Buy. They were doing a little event where they were giving out Mists of Pandaria posters if you bought at launch, if you bought the box sets. So we went there, we bought the box set with the posters. We went back to my parents' house. It was me and my brother and three other guys, three of our friends and cousins, and we taped the posters up in the office. There's like glass doors on that. We taped them up on the glass doors. We installed Mists, which obviously took a little bit of time because you had to put the discs in back then and do that shit. And we played Mists until like 4 a.m. We ordered food and just grinded that shit out. And that was the last expansion that I did that with, sadly. That was the last, it's pop off opening night. Let's get together and have like a LAN party. That was the last LAN party I ever had. And that's why I think maybe I have fond memories of Mist. But overall, I think Mist was good. Throne of Thunder, good. Gameplay, good. PvP was good. There were a lot of good things about Mist of Pandaria. Wish we had played Pandaria. Kata was good. Quit after Cataclysm. Yeah, a lot of people did. I got the digital download for Mist. That was when they first made it available. But I refused to because I remember I was collecting the boxes at the time. And I wanted the box. The last box I actually bought was WoD. It was. I did buy Warlords of Draenor, but that was kind of just like a nostalgia thing. But Mist was like the one that I bought and I installed the discs.
Several comments at the announcement of this expansion saying things like, well, WoW's dead, pandas in my Warcraft,
Monk was
ridiculous.
a Kung Fu Panda thing. Maybe.
However, like with most of us, when you arrived in Pandaria, you were stunned.
Yeah,
the
it was
landscapes
beautiful.
were beautiful. The quests were lore-rich.
I still remember those, the blossom trees. You know how beautiful? Like, I remember thinking that this felt uprest. There was something about Mists of Pandaria that the first time you went there, the trees looked different. I still remember thinking that. Those really pretty blossom trees, whatever they call them, it just looked different. And I thought Pandaria was a beautiful continent. I enjoyed leveling up in Pandaria a lot.
There was so much content to enjoy. Like, what the heck was going on?
And I enjoyed the music.
This expansion is actually good. The monk class might have felt a little underwhelming for some people, including you most likely, but that didn't matter.
Yeah,
The
I didn't
Thunder
play monk. I
King
didn't
raid
care.
was awesome. The new talent
Yeah.
trees made everybody feel like overpowered demigods. PvP was amazing. Even things like scenarios became some of your favorite pieces of content in World of Warcraft. The reason why Mists of Pandaria is your favorite expansion is likely because, well, because it surprised you so much. Sure, you probably thought this expansion would be okay, but you didn't expect it to be amazing. And that's such an awesome feeling as a gamer when you
Yeah.
pick up a new video game and wow, like you're just genuinely surprised.
I totally agree with this take. I think anybody who actually played Mists of Pandaria, because like Mists had a bad rap from the start. That was like the first Kata did it. People were excited for Kata, but when Mists got revealed, that was like the first expansion that kind of hit as a dud. Like everybody from the second it was revealed at BlizzCon, people were pissed. The hype was very low. No one was really excited, or shouldn't say no one, but a lot of people were not excited. Anybody who actually played Mists, I think were pleasantly surprised with how good the expansion was. Sam, where was this channel all these years? I was in college at this time, just grinding out and playing WoW as much as I could on the side. So yeah, I wish I had started this channel back then. Unfortunately, I didn't. Monks were broken. Every class that gets introduced is usually broken at the start for sure. Jade Forest is a great zone for Plunderstorm. Interesting take. Yeah, it actually would be. I love Jade Forest. Yeah, it was definitely an underrated expansion for me.
You also get to
Like I
raise your
said, it sits right up there, like second place with Legion.
own flying cloud serpent dragon. How cool is that? Warlords of Draenor.
Ooh.
So I have met people
Ooh,
who
the last
love
box I ever
Warlords
bought.
of Draenor and unironically think it was the best World of Warcraft expansion of all time, despite
Look,
any
the content we got was not bad. Garrisons were a problem in the game because they separated people apart. That was the sad part about Garrisons. It really did limit player interaction. For the first time, we really felt like WoW didn't feel like an MMO anymore. It also broke the economy, beyond repair. I think they're still trying to repair the economy post Garrisons, which is hilarious. We got stupid ass shipyard content. There were issues with WoD for sure. But I do remember the opening quest line, the hype. If you look at the player chart, population, it shot the hell up. They did a ton of marketing for WoD. Remember the giant Gorehowl axe and the taxi in New York City and everything? The Blizzard went all out on this expansion, and they had the level boost. That was the first time it was introduced. For anybody who didn't play like Mists and shit, they got to boost their character up, so everyone got into WoD right away. And I do remember opening questline hype, everything. That was great. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the storyline as much as I hate time travel, alternate time. I hate that kind of shit. But overall, I liked seeing the, learning about the orcs back then and how all these things happened and everything. And Garrosh, he still did nothing wrong. He's a cool character. But overall, the content we got in WoD wasn't bad. It was the content we didn't get in WoD that was really bad. We had like a year of nothing. It was fucking horrible. Those were tough times. I remember watching Asmongold sitting in his garrison talking to McConnell all day, just doing nothing because there was nothing to do. This was my first expansion where I started watching a lot of Twitch. That's for sure.
of its cons. And
There's
all of
nothing
them,
else to do.
in my experience, have one thing in common. This expansion is their favorite because this is when they started playing World of Warcraft for the first time. So for them, perhaps for
babies.
you, the complete dumpster fire that was Warlords of Draenor didn't really bother you. There was so much of Azeroth to explore, so much to do, and the expansion only having one major patch was not a problem. You loved Blackrock Foundry. You thought High Mall was cool. Hellfire Citadel was a ton of fun. Garrisons, they were a neat mechanic in the game that could have been improved on instead of just completely retired. The new character models you found fun. Look, Warlords did have a lot
new
of
character
good
models were
things in
nice.
it, so it's not surprising that some people found this expansion to be their favorite. Now, it is true that Warlords of Draenor might have had barely any content compared to previous expansions. Blizzard might have been going through a ton of company drama at the time, and yes, tons of content promised at BlizzCon might have been scrapped, like the Shatrath raid.
What was it? Well, not to mention, we lost entire cities. That whole, wasn't it supposed to be Shatterath or a rebuild of it? The original Draenei city was supposed to be the hub city for the Alliance. Remember, there were still factions back then. And the Horde were supposed to get the Ogre city of Highmall. That was supposed to be their capital. And those were scrapped. We got those shitty little campsites. Those were so bad. Those were the worst capital cities we ever got, for sure. They go down as the worst ever. What is this? Snow-covered wastes beneath the towering volcanoes. Frostwolf clan versus Thunderlord clan. Yeah, we never got that. I don't know what that. Blade Spire Forest, Ogres, and Horde City. Yeah, see, it says Horde City behind my picture here. Yeah, the city thing got completely scuffed up. that was probably the first indication that we were not going to get everything we were supposed to get in this expansion. Frostfire
BlizzCon
Ridge.
might have been scrapped, like the Shatrath
Yeah,
raid,
factions.
but you
What's a
don't care.
faction?
You still were falling deeper and deeper in love with World of Warcraft throughout
Yeah, I still
Warlords
played it.
despite any of this. And that's why it's your favorite expansion, Legion. Warlords of Draenor sucked, you thought to yourself.
Yeah,
Blizzard
Legion was
has
a
just been
comeback.
falling apart these past couple of years. The game is on a massive decline. Nostalrius, the vanilla WoW private server, that was shut down by Blizzard, and you just have a sour taste in your mouth towards the company and the game. You had little hope for the future of World of Warcraft, my friend. Blizzard had changed. The game just wasn't the same. Maybe it was time to throw in the towel.
Nope.
Then you played Legion.
Yeah.
Artifact weapons, the Demon Hunter class. Holy crap.
The story of Legion was back, man. It was the first time since Arthas that I wanted to kill a boss. I wanted to kill Gul'dan. I was a Varian fan, and when he died, I wanted to kill Gul'dan. That was like the first time in the game that I said, you know what, I'm gearing the fuck out. I'm gonna beat the shit out of this guy. And I was very motivated to raid at that time, for sure, just to kill him. Order halls, amazing. I miss them. I wish they would kind of bring them back in some way. I loved order halls for sure. And overall, I mean, Legion Legendaries, it was fun. The AP grind got grindy towards the end, but it was like this inevitable climb where he just kept getting stronger and stronger. It was a lot of fun.
Dude, legendaries that made you feel like a titan walking
Yeah,
among men.
you
It was
the
awesome.
player power was
Illidan,
intense.
Gul'dan, High Mountain Tauren, and more. Dude, talk about a comeback. Yes, maybe
Mage
Warlords
Tower,
have been
yep.
a bit lacking in your eyes, and maybe that made you want to quit WoW for good, but you stuck it out and you were rewarded for it, dude. Your Warcraft 3 fanboyness was fueled by Illidan. You might have lost a friend or two because you had to grind artifact power instead of...
You lost a friend for artifact power, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Ashbringer. Ashbringer lost the lore value. That was the one, I do agree. I totally agree, Jack. That was the one slight fallback for me in terms of legendaries, was when everybody had a legendary, it was no longer legendary. You know, we did kind of lose some lore back in Legion, and I think people don't talk about it a lot. But, you know, having Ashbringer was kind of like, what the hell? This sword is like a one of a kind, and now every paladin is walking around with it, you know, just letting it hang out, swing around. Whereas, like, Death Knights, it would have been like Death Knights all getting Frostmourne. But that's not what we did. We had pieces of Frostmourne that we put together into different blades, which to me was a better lore take on a legendary rather than giving every Death Knight Frostmourne. That would have been stupid. So yeah, things like that where Ashbringer was with every paladin, you know, you just kind of got to overlook it. And I think a lot of us did just because Legion was so good.
going out to eat that one day, and you unironically replaced the Death Knight as your favorite class with the Demon Hunter. Guys, Legion was great and a ton of fun.
Very
and
good
for
stories.
You, if this was your favorite moment in WoW's history,
Good lore.
you probably refer to Legion as the mini golden age of WoW. Battle for Azeroth. This was the expansion you had been waiting for since World of Warcraft was first installed on your PC. You love the Horde versus Alliance conflict. You've always been the guy to shout for the Horde or for the Alliance in trade chats just for fun. So when Blizzard announced Battle for Azeroth, this
Warfronts, man, there were a lot of like things that kind of fell as duds, and honestly, the main killer for Battle for Azeroth, because I still look at Battle for Azeroth, kind of, it wasn't bad. Maybe because Shadowlands came later, and that was not fun. So I looked back at Battle for Azeroth, I was like, damn, I miss those days. But overall, Battle for Azeroth, to me, it gave me one of my favorite raids, Battle for Dazar lore. I liked the Zandalari Trolls. That was fun to go see what they were all about. And the Kultirans, I thought they were two really good races added to the game. Overall, I did enjoy BFA for what it was, but I think Azerite armor was such a killer. It was so dumb, and this was a big swinging point for Blizzard where they realized we should listen to player feedback, because everybody who tested Azerite armor before BFA came out said, this is broken. This is wrong. Don't do it, Blizzard. Don't reset this shit every time we loot it. We got to redo the entire progression system. It was really shitty. It made looting things feel shitty because you couldn't equip it right away. You had to do all the upgrading for it and everything. It just ruined the game. So then Blizzard had to take every single dev they had, and they admitted this, and put them on fixing Azerite armor. Their number one goal was fix Azerite armor. They had to redo the entire system, which meant war fronts and everything they had planned for that. Island expeditions, all that stuff got thrown away. They could not do anything with them anymore. They all just kind of got put to the wayside so they could fix the core system of Azerite armor, which kind of scuffed up the entire expansion. But overall, BFA, decent story, good raids, and to me, it was fun. It was fun. I did enjoy BFA for what it was.
this was it. This was the expansion that made you a PvPer, just so you could fall more into that role-playish mind of Battle for Azeroth. You really wanted to feel like that Horde or Alliance hero doing battle against the enemy in battlegrounds, arenas, or open world PvP. Maybe you had been all about that PvE lifestyle of previous expansions, but no more. Unfortunately, though, BFA was not exactly praised all around. It was a mixed bag expansion, and that sort of disappoints you. Some people loved it and they defend it religiously. Perhaps you do this, while other people found it incredible.
My brother-in-law is a BFA baby. He's a BFA baby. So my brother-in-law got married to my sister just before BFA, and he was a doctor. He is a doctor. He was going to medical school at the time, and I told my sister straight up, I was like, look, you want us to be friends? You want me to be friends with your husband? She's like, of course I do. It's like, you got to get him into WoW. I have nothing else to talk about. I have no way to relate to this man. What am I going to talk to him about? I don't get it. So we got him WoW. We got him into the game. He loves it. He praises BFA as his favorite expansion because he's a BFA baby, and he still plays the game in and out till today. Right now he's doing his residency, so he's grinding. He's doing the real life grind. But he always talks about WoW. He wants to get right back into it. He's excited about the World Soul Saga. He says he's going to resub when that starts, and that's good. That's good. So people who started in BFA, I think they had a good time with the expansion, and they didn't know a lot about the game at the time or what came before. So I think overall BFA was a good experience for a lot of people, and obviously corruption at the end, that was kind of fun. It did break the game.
Incredibly boring, lackluster, and unsatisfying.
He is now single.
So if you're somebody that loved BFA, you're probably a former.
He's
Maybe
still
you
good.
acknowledge some of the failures in the expansion, but damn, the cinematics, the battle for Darkshore, all the Sarfang stuff. This is an expansion you just can't help but love. Shadowlands. Guys, I'm going to be honest about something. I have never met somebody who says that Shadowlands was their favorite expansion.
No.
So I really can't tell you what this person is like because I think there's so few of them and they're so far between. You got to understand.
It's just not good. It was not good. This is bottom. This is the bottom of the bucket, boys. Shadowlands was a bad time. Torghast grind, shitty. The theme, shitty. Spiky dildos everywhere, shitty. Ouroboros, shitty. It's really hard for me to find, honestly, a thing that I liked about Shadowlands. The one saving grace for Shadowlands. The one reason why I grinded the shit out of this. And this is when I started streaming, too. I let Sam pick the shittiest expansion to start streaming and making YouTube videos. But here's the thing. It was COVID. COVID lockdown towards the end of BFA leading into Shadowlands was the reason I played. I had nothing else to do. I actually got fired from my job. I just sat here grinding away Shadowlands content. I eventually got hired as a remote employee to my next job because there was, nobody could come into the office at the time, so I played more Shadowlands. I probably have /playtime. Shadowlands probably one of my most. But it was really just because of the COVID lockdowns. That's what I think of with Shadowlands for sure. Castle Nathria was a good raid, yes. I agree with that. Sire Denathrius, good character, good lore. Beyond that, we can delete Shadowlands from our memory.
Shadowlands was bad. Like, really bad. If you were playing the game, the content was extremely dull, it was repetitive, the lore was frustratingly poorly written, and that was supposed to give us motivation and tie all of this stuff together. I mean, Shadowlands was a frustrating...
What it did to the Lich King lore and Arthas in general, unforgivable. Unforgivable. Like I say, good lore, makes an expansion so much better, and, no lore kind of ruins it a little bit in terms of, mist, stuff like that, but bad lore. Shadowlands is an example of what bad lore can do. It can wreck an expansion.
Outside of the game, this was the time when Blizzard was constantly getting sued almost every week.
Oh yeah, the titty milk
harassment
incident.
And people
shit.
stealing breast milk.
Yeah,
Shadowlands
that's right.
just made a lot of people
Forgot about that.
feel nasty for playing World of Warcraft and supporting Blizzard. And this is something that hasn't really been fully recovered from even to this day. I would suppose though that if somebody were to say that this was their favorite expansion, it would probably be because of the covenants, the cool looking armor sets,
maybe.
And the theme or the idea of going into the afterlife. Maybe even Torghast was very fun for them. I don't know. But hey, if you're a fan of Shadowlands, let us know down in the comments section. Why did you love this expansion so much? What about it made it so special? Dragonflight. All right. If there's one thing that defines the Dragonflight lover, it is this: fun. These types of players, those that feel that this is their favorite expansion of all time, they just want to have fun. They don't want...
Dragonflight is an example of good gameplay, bad lore. That's really what it is. I feel like Dragonflight, the lore has been shaky. Iridikron's a good character. I like him. I like what they're doing with Xal'atath going into the World Soul Saga and everything else. But beyond that, the lore has been kind of like, It's too friendly, too happy, too much huggy, kissy. It's just fine. The gameplay, I've enjoyed it. The season 3 Mythic Plus been one of my favorite seasons. The raids have been good. The gameplay has been good. Dragon riding's been great. The content cadence has been good. You know, they've been dropping a lot of content at a good pace. Overall, those have been great. Story has been dragging down Dragonflight. That's how I feel about it.
Some super in-depth, confusing lore story in their MMO. They don't care about fighting literal gods in outer space or finding ways to solve what's going on with a giant sword stabbed into the planet. These guys just want to fly dragons. They want to cook soup. They want to go on some fun quests every so often, earn some new armor for their dragon mount, climb some mountains. They just want simple and pure gaming fun with an easy to understand storyline to hold it all together. And this is great. These players also tend to be collector types. They genuinely enjoy all there is to do in Dragonflight, from finding new pets, doing the achievements, delighting in finding new crafting recipes in the open world. This expansion has a lot of reasons to be somebody's favorite. And I hope that if Dragonflight is your favorite expansion, that you enjoy the War Within just as much. And that's it, everybody. Did I describe you and your experiences with your favorite expansion accurately? Let us know down below, because I certainly hope so. Either way, I'll see you guys with our next video.
Yeah, overall, Dragonflight, I mean, it's just, I feel like it's like a prelude to what hopefully will be good story going forward with Chris Metzen's return and everything else. Dragonflight for me has been a fun expansion. I've kind of ignored the story at this point, other than the Ridicron-based storyline, because that's the best thing that's come out of Dragonflight in terms of story. Other than that, good expansion, but an expansion that lacks a good lore thread going through the entire thing. And I think that's going to get fixed with the War Within and the World Soul Saga and everything going forward. So if they can take good gameplay, which they've kind of reestablished with Dragonflight, you know, it's the opposite of Shadowlands. You can do what you want in Dragonflight. There's no grind that you really have to do if you don't want to do it. And even when there are slight grinds, you can pick how you want to do it. So that's been a great thing about Dragonflight. Definitely alt-friendly. And going forward, I think they're going to keep that theme. Hopefully, the thing that was bad about Dragonflight, the lore, gets fixed in the World Soul Saga. And that's why I'm excited about WoW going forward. But overall, still Wrath for me. Still Wrath. Best expansion.